PR Focus is a macOS app that makes it easy to watch repositories on GitHub for pull requests that you care about. I use PR Focus to watch a variety of repos and have an aggregate dashboard for all of the pull requests whose status I want to monitor. When you open PR Focus, you go to an aggregate dashboard. This lists all of the pull requests that you're watching, that you've made, where you're a reviewer or an assignee, and it has an inbox where new pull requests in the repositories you're watching appear. You can go to the inbox, check out each pull request, and decide whether you want to watch or ignore it. In this case, I see this pull request to the Realm Kotlin repository. I see it is currently a draft status, and it's testing the release process. I don't need to pay attention to this, so I can right-click on this summary and ignore this pull request directly from my inbox. I can see, if I scroll down, a variety of pull requests that I might know right away whether I want to ignore or watch. In other cases, I might not know unless I click in and view more details. For example, this passing encryption key via a callback pull request that's in the Realm Kotlin repository might be something I want to pay attention to. Let me click into this and see if I can find some more information about this pull request. Here I'm viewing the pull request details. I can see the description of the PR. I can see various reviews that the pull request has had. And in this case, I haven't viewed this before, so everything is displaying as new. In the event that I had already looked at this PR, only the things that have come in since I last viewed it would have this new label. I can see from this description that the color can reset the native memory region, and I'm not sure whether the color in this case is something automated that the SDK is doing, or if it's the user who is calling the method. So I'm going to view the pull request on GitHub and get more information to decide whether I want to watch or ignore this pull request. After looking at the pull request on GitHub, I've decided it's something that I want to pay attention to. I'm going to press the watch button, and now this pull request appears in my watch list. When it gets an update, the background will change from this gray color to the white color that you see above, and it'll automatically move up in this list because the default sort for these watched pull requests is by the updated date. So the most recently updated pull requests are always on top. I can change how I want to view this list. For example, if I want to look for pull requests where there are problems with merge conflicts or where there are failing checks, then I can change my sort and fix pull requests that need attention. PR Focus is very specific about not letting you delete a pull request that's still open. This is because you may later become a reviewer or an assignee on a pull request, even if you've already ignored it. In that case, the pull request will move into your reviewing or your assignee column, and you won't miss it, even though you chose earlier not to watch that pull request. The default view when you load PR Focus is this aggregate dashboard that shows all of the pull requests across all of the repositories you're watching. You can narrow down what you're viewing to a specific repository by expanding your repository list. You can see here a list of all the repositories I'm watching, and each one that has open PRs that are displaying in my dashboard. I can then click into the individual repository and see only the pull requests for that repository. In the individual repository view, there's also a concept of a repository where you might not be a contributor, but you still need to watch that repository for changes. For example, this Realm Swift repository, I'm unlikely to ever make a pull request or be a reviewer on a pull request in this repo. I can go to the repo settings and I can select Watch Only View. This changes the columns, so now I'm only seeing the inbox and the watched pull requests for this repository. I can change these all individually on a per repository basis, or I can go to the global settings and select things based on the assignee workflow or the reviewing workflow that I typically use. For me, I'm never an assignee on a pull request, so by default, I don't show the assignee column. If I were to change to a different workflow, I could show assignees on the global settings page, or I could change that on an individual repo basis. For example, if we started using the assignee workflow here, I could change the repo settings, select assignee, and remove reviewer. When I change those settings, then I see assigned pull requests, not reviewing pull requests. And when I go back to the aggregate dashboard, I now see an assigned pull request column and a reviewing column. This is because some of the repos that I'm watching use an assignee workflow and others use a reviewing workflow. So the aggregate dashboard always shows every PR, and that means it has to cover all of the possible states of those PRs. Some of the magic in PR Focus is how it automatically moves pull requests around based on information that it gets from GitHub. For example, if I go to GitHub and I start reviewing a pull request, it automatically shows up in my reviewing pull requests column. If I don't go to GitHub, but someone tags me as a reviewer or an assignee on a pull request, it automatically shows up in my reviewing or assigning column. I'll never miss important information, even if I'm not the one who changes the state of the pull request. PR Focus also moves things around for you when pull requests close or when they become inactive for a long period of time. For example, I have these 2 pull requests in my list that are closed. In time, they will automatically move to the archived pull request list. I can select how quickly to move those using a global setting or on a per repository basis. Or if I normally want things to stay around for, say, 5 days, but in this particular case, I want to move it immediately, I can right-click on the PR summary and archive the pull request. This moves it out of my pull request list and into the archived pull requests dashboard. In other cases, a pull request might remain open for a long period of time, but not have any recent activity. This may happen because there are business priority changes or because somebody who's involved in the pull request goes on vacation. When this occurs, I don't want that pull request in my main dashboard taking up valuable space. PR Focus automatically moves these inactive pull requests to an inactive pull request dashboard. I can see here all of the pull requests that haven't had activity within the interval that I configured either on a repository basis or on a global basis. When one of these pull requests has activity again, it moves automatically out of this inactive PR dashboard and back into my main dashboard view. This lets PR Focus get it out of my way when there's nothing interesting happening, but it returns when there's an update that I need to pay attention to. You can configure how often you want PR Focus to fetch updates from GitHub. When I go into my repository view, I can select an individual repository, say for example, the Docs Realm repository. This is a repository where I and my coworkers regularly need to interact, so I want to see updates here more often. I go to repo settings, and I can change my fetch frequency to several times per hour. This means that if there's an update, I'll see it more quickly. For a repository like the Realm Swift repository, I don't need to see updates to this repository as often because I'm not a direct contributor. I just need to watch it for engineering work that I'm going to need to document in the future. For this repository, I can go into repo settings and customize several times per day. This lets me get updates every few hours, but it's not fetching too often and it doesn't slow down my fetch jobs for things that are more important to me. Anytime I can go press the Fetch PRs button and fetch all of the pull requests for all the repositories I'm watching in GitHub. As long as there's not a fetch job running already, it lets me start that process. Then I'll see the updates appear in my dashboard. You can add repositories to PR Focus, either individually or as a selection of many repositories. For example, when I go to the Add Repo view, I can put in one URL to add one repository, or I can select Add Many and provide a list of URLs to watch on GitHub. I might want to use a list of URLs if I'm working with a team. And for example, I know that I and all of my teammates want to watch the same 10 repositories. We can populate this list once, I can share it with my teammates, and we can all add this to PR Focus. When I add repos individually, I can customize the color of the repository label. When I add a long list of repositories, those repository labels are randomized and I can change them later if I want to change the color or the name of the repository. PR Focus, by default, uses the Git repo name as the name of the label on the pull request and in the repository sidebar. I can go into the repo settings and customize the name. For example, I might want to call this SDK documentation. And I might want to change the color to light pink. When I update the appearance, now you can see the new label and the new color. And it also changed in the sidebar.